Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji, Krishna, Larry Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, beloved Swamiji, we humbly bow to you all. Divine Mother, we deeply pray that you awaken us from this dream, and inspire us to share your light, your love and joy, with all souls. Come to us. We yearn for thee.
immortality. You are not your body. You are not your thoughts, your desires, your changing personality. Your body has a certain age, but you yourself have no age. Your body may tire or become unwell, but you yourself, the fatigueless soul, cannot tire, can never know disease. Tell yourself always, I am a child of eternity. Don't be identified with your outward form, nor with change, but live in timelessness. It is our identity with change that creates the illusion of passing time. Feel that through all outward changes, you, the immortal soul, remain the same. Death itself will be but one more change. Be not identified with it. Then, when death comes, you shall rise in eternal freedom. Please affirm with me. I am a child of eternity.
I am a child of eternity.
I am ageless.
I am ageless.
I am deathless.
I am deathless.
I am the changeless spirit.
I am the changeless spirit.
At the heart of all mutation.
At the heart of all mutation.
I am a child of eternity.
I am a child of eternity.
I am ageless.
I am ageless.
I am deathless.
I am deathless.
I am the changeless spirit.
I am the changeless spirit.
At the heart of all mutation.
The heart of all mutation.
You more quietly. I am a child of eternity.
I am a child of eternity.
I am ageless. I am deathless. I am the changeless spirit. At the heart of all mutation. And now in a whisper, I am a child of eternity. I am ageless. I am deathless. I am the changeless spirit. At the heart of all mutation. And now silently, with deep concentration, take it into the superconscious. I am a child of eternity. I am ageless. I am deathless. I am the changeless spirit at the heart of all mutation. I am a child of eternity. I am ageless. I am deathless. I am the changeless spirit at the heart of all mutation. Please pray silently with me. Wherever my body travels outwardly, let me feel thy changeless presence within. Wherever my thoughts take me, let them return always, like prodigal children, to find repose in thee. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Amen.
Good morning. This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Ananda, entitled Demand for the Opening of the Spiritual Eye to Find God in Everything. My eyes are enthralled, O Father, with the beauty of earthly flowers, with life's passing scenes, and with the sailing, silent clouds. Everywhere, all I see hints at thy hidden presence. Open that eye in me, which sees only thee. With that gaze may I behold thee above, beneath, all around, within, and outside me. Teach me in all things to see only thee. Open in me that eye which beholds everywhere thy hidden, but ever subtly reigning wonder. And from The New Path by Swami Kriyananda. This is drawn from The Path, a search for guide maps before he met Paramahansa Yogananda. To give you a little idea of, just before I read, Swami Kriyananda was in the late 40s seeking God, but he didn't know where to go. And he tried absolutely everything possible. He went out in the country because he thought that's the simple life, and was met with all kinds of farmers and different people that, ridiculed him because he was a city boy. He just had one miserable experience after another. But he kept on because he knew that although at one point he thought he was maybe going crazy, had anyone ever sought God, he thought he had no alternative because he was raised in a prosperous environment. He didn't want any of that. He wanted to have the experience of God and if God exists. It was a tremendously trying time. And so at one point, he went through his mother's library. And his mother and father both had the great privilege of meeting Paramahansa Yogananda, and at least in his mother's later years, she did learn to meditate and all of that. Well, anyway, he was going through the library, and his mother's library, and he found this Short World Bible. He thought, well, he was reading everything voraciously, staying up at all hours with his friends, discussing philosophy. He was going through college and so forth. So he thought, well, let me give this a try. And he was inspired as he was reading excerpts from all the great religions. But still, it didn't give him any indication as to what to do. And that's what yoga is all about. It was lots of inspiration. I remember years ago when I was a monk, I put down whatever book I was reading, and I said to myself, I'm tired of reading. I want to have the experience. And I didn't thrust books out of my life forever by any means, especially spiritual books. But I remember it was a point of exasperation. All of the readings of St. Francis and all of these great saints floating up into the light, and here I'm reading about these things, and of course we want all to experience them. So anyway, this gives you a little idea of what he was going through at the time before he read this little book. At last, then I came upon excerpts from the Hindu teachings. A few pages only, but what a revelation. Here the emphasis was on cosmic realities. God was described as the infinite consciousness, man as a manifestation of that consciousness. Why? This was the very concept I myself had worked out during my long evening walk in Charleston. Man's highest duty, I read, is to attune himself with the divine consciousness. Again, this was what I too had worked out. Man's ultimate goal is, I found, the thought echoed back to me, to experience that divine reality as his true self. But how scientific! What infinite promise! Poetic symbolism abounded here too, as in the other great scriptures. Here, however, I found also explanations presented with crystal clarity and logic. Best of all, I found the counsel I had been seeking, not only on how to live a religious life generally, but more specifically, how to seek God. I was astounded. This was exactly what I had been seeking. I felt like a poor man who had just been given great riches. I love reading The Path. There's, again, if you haven't read it, about 400 stories of Yogananda. And I find as much inspiration in part one prior to him meeting Yogananda, because it was just a grinding effort for him again in the late 40s, where yoga was not well known, and him being blocked again and again. He would go to church services, and all they'd be talking about is, look out before, you get, liquor will get you, and nothing about God, no inspiration, just, one sermon after another that just gave him nothing. And then at the end, when he built up the courage to ask the minister about some, like thy eye be single, when the eye is single, the whole body's filled with light. He would read in the Bible. He'd ask the minister, and the minister wouldn't know what he was talking about. It was a very, very trying time. So part one of The Path is all about this horrendous effort, where at one point, because God, self-effort draws grace, God had pity on him, and finally he went to the bookstore, saw the autobiography of a yogi, and that was it. His life was completely changed. Divine Mother, she loves to play tricks on us, and that's fun for her. Hopefully we enjoy the gag too, but not always. Yesterday, we had no electricity, and we called Amrita and said, Amrita, what are we to do? She says, well, I live in an apartment building. Everything's taken care of here. I wish I could help you. I thought, maybe we should move to an apartment building. This sounds awfully good. These private houses, they have their advantages, but there's also some trying experiences. And so for about 6 hours, it was fine because it's, it was like around noontime. It didn't seem to be much of an issue. But then at one point, it was time to light the candles. And so I thought, well, let me go outside and just make an effort to see if I can find anything about anything. And I thought, well, I'll go next door to talk to these guys, that keep track of the neighborhood. But I didn't have a lot of hope they would help, and they didn't give me a hand. But someone right outside here at the center, I met, and I said, everyone else has electricity, but we don't. Do you have electricity? He didn't seem to know what I was talking about. And so I said, well, is there like a place where you go? Do you call a phone number? What do I do? He says, oh, there's an electricity board. Oh, I said, well, that's wonderful. He said, well, you just go down the street and then turn right and then left. And if you get lost, everybody knows, it's very well known, And so I said, okay, great. So I left a little note for Roma. She was meditating or something at the time. And I said, I'm off to electricity board, which I'd never even heard of. And but I was happy it was in the neighborhood. So I went there, and it was getting darker and darker. And finally I found this place, and it just looked like nobody had been there for 50 years. And I thought, well, okay, can they turn my electricity on? I don't know if their electricity is on. But it appeared to be. And so there was a lady there, very sweet. I said, if you could help me, we have no electricity in the house. She says, I'm so sorry. You'll have to come back tomorrow between 9 and 10. And I thought, 9 and 10, that's Sunday. I can't be going down the electricity board. I'm going to leave a note for all of you. I'm off to the electricity board. And so I thought, well, that's not going to work. We had been checking our little dial, and there's a little dial there, and if it moves, you're fine. That means you have got electricity. And we had checked it, again and again, and we had seen the other, we've got these various, what are they called? Switchboards or something around the house. But the dial wasn't moving. So finally I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll open up that little outside area and just flip the switches. And I'm not electrical, and I'm not a plumber, and I'm not a carpenter. I always hope, especially in India where there's an enormous current, that if I flip the switch, I still live. That's always been something that I've, thought about. And I thought, well, it's a, good time to go if it's time to go. So I just, again, you're closing your eyes and hoping that the Guru is going to protect you. And all of a sudden, all the lights went on. And I thought to myself, this is so much our experience in life. We're walking around in a daze, and karma strikes, and we're confused, and all of these things. And Divine Mother is always trying to reach us through our conscience, and through a friend, and common sense, and past experience, and all these things, because she doesn't want us to go through all of these changes. I've checked that thing outside many times. We've lived here for 4 years. Why was the veil down and I had to go to the electricity board? I just think it was just a trick, like Narada. Narada was asked by the Guru to go and get some water. And he had all these experiences, knocked on the door to get the water. It was a beautiful woman there. He married her, had kids, and then a flood came. Everybody was swept away. Then he found himself with his Guru saying, Narada, I asked you a half an hour ago. He had had a whole life of experiences, he thought, in his dream. And he had forgot on the way to get the water. He fell asleep, had to take a little nap. And so what was going on? Why didn't I go check that? I was buffaloed. See, I don't know if you have that term, and we have it in the U.S. You're fooled. Because the thing wasn't spinning around, I knocked out of my mind that the box had a solution. There was no solution there because the thing wasn't spinning around. But there was a solution there, and I wasn't going to get electrocuted either. Just turn the switch on, and we didn't get everything back. Luckily, we had a water run this morning. Thank you for that. Because some of the things, our appliances and all, it's not working. The electrician comes at 3 p.m. So I thought to myself, Divine Mother, I really, really appreciated this lesson because it was so idiotic, and as Master said in the Autobiography of a Yogi, that what happens to us in this Maya is we get caught up in pride of intellect and pure idiocy. And I thought that was a wonderful combination. That, we think we're adults now and we can, balance a checkbook and drive to work and all the things. And, we're functioning on all fronts. Except we forgot to check the thing which would have saved us 6 hours of running around and bothering Amrita and all of that stuff. It's amazing how vulnerable we are to this Maya. I had an interesting experience. Roma and I, coming back from the States and all that, we were yearning for seclusion because there caring for our daughter Rose, it was a busy time and it was time to get a little break, but it seemed like we just took a break and how can we take another break? But I thought, well, there's many forms of seclusion. So let me take a semi-seclusion with a capital S, because everything was continuing on, phones and people banging on the door and the rug came in and, so it was definitely going to be a semi-seclusion. No question about that. Okay, fine. But I thought, I wonder if I can do something I've never done before, because I've had many variations of seclusion over the years, formal seclusions. You go away, you're in silence, perhaps some fasting, all of that, emphasis of meditation. Well, I thought, because this week is, I could look at the week and there was just all the things going on, the normal week, being busy. I thought, how about if I meditate a couple hours more than I normally meditate? I thought, that sounds good. I've got the morning, I expand, sleep a little less, expand that. The evening, push on that a little bit. And then I thought, instead of, we love books, instead of reading some of the nice books we have, I always like to have 2 or 3 books that are ready to be read. How about just the spiritual books? I said, okay. And I said, while you're reading these spiritual books, note the difference. Because you enjoy your other books, you enjoy going, to the movies, all those things, they're wonderful. But is there a difference? Well, I didn't hardly have to ask the question. Of course there is. It's one, you're fully immersed in spirit, in reading these scriptures and these spiritual books that just speak to you. It's the saints come alive. You're keeping the presence of the saints. And then the other books, which are wonderful, and people are climbing the Himalayas and going to the depths of the ocean to, find treasures in the sea and all that. Great stuff. But, though some inspiration doesn't give you that direct infusion of blessings, really on a cellular level. And so I thought, okay, here we go. 5 days later of finishing up of this semi-seclusion on Friday, I thought, has there been a difference? I know there had, but I wanted to really cement it in my mind. So in future, if there really was a benefit, I could do something like that again. I thought there has been a difference. There has been a difference. Even though I didn't have my formal seclusion, because again, the tendency is if I can't do my 45 minutes of yoga, then I won't do any yoga. If I can't have my set of meditation, which is so special to me, then no meditation, because what's 5 minutes? Well, Master said the minutes are more important than the years. One of the books I was reading The Path, which I've read many times. I like to remember when Roma's mother and father came to visit. She saw that I was reading The Path, and she said, have you read this book before? And I think I astonished her. I said, I read it all the time. She says, you do? It's like, she was a brilliant woman, and she figured, she probably thought, her son-in-law was somewhat intelligent, but, you keep on reading the book. It's like, maybe you need some counseling or a tutor or, something. My God. But it's true that this book, as Master said of his autobiography of a yogi, it has my vibrations. And so this book, The Path, again, I urge you to read it. Sequel of the autobiography of a yogi, as Swami Kriyananda described it. It is so packed with this pure vibration. Well, along with this book, I was reading Jnanamata, Yogananda's most advanced disciple. And in the previous lives, as some of you know, she was Teresa of Avila, and she was the ecstatic saint, and she had an extraordinary lifetime and a lot of hardship too. And so in this lifetime, she was, though Yogananda counted on her for responsibility and so on, for the most part she was behind the scenes. And she came as an elderly woman in her 60s, and Yogananda, he wanted her to help out in his mission, along with Rajarsi Janakananda. And so he made a pact with God. She was very, very ill during this last 20 years of his life. He made a pact with God that God couldn't take her unless he said so. And what she was doing, and it was true of Yogananda, and I believe Swami Kriyananda too, and so many wonderful and great saints, is Jnanamata had come in free. And she was fully liberated in this life when she passed in 51. She was there 20 years suffering physically for the karma, to burn out the karma of others, to free up their burden. And there was never any complaints. Yogananda said he never saw sadness in her eyes or regret or anything. As a matter of fact, he said he examined her thoughts, and he said in her lifetime, he didn't find one impure thought. And I just think, wow, how about going 5 minutes in a day with the shining goal of just having positive thoughts, or maybe 10 minutes if we make 5, maybe even 20 or an hour. An entire lifetime, what does that speak of? She was totally, totally pure. And as Yogananda said, free in this lifetime. The question was asked of him, why? Because in the previous incarnation as Teresa of Avila, she had Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And so these gurus, I mean, how can we understand them? When asked, why didn't she have Nirvikalpa Samadhi this lifetime? He said, she didn't need that. She even had to ask Yogananda toward the end of his life, when will I find God? And he said, you've already found him. I think, my God, I'll never understand these teachings. How can that be? And all I can think of is she was so used to striving over the incarnations that when finally she arrived, she didn't even realize she had arrived. It's kind of like going on a drive and all of a sudden coming to your destination and then looking at the sign and saying, oh, that's where I was wanting to go. That's the town. That kind of thing. Of course, on quite a different level, to say the very least. And so, for us, there is the opportunity, and it's there always, to find ways to continue to outfox Maya. And at the end of this week, what I thought to myself was again from Swami Kriyananda's conversations with Yogananda, where Yogananda met a professor from Colombia, and the Colombian professor had many intellectual questions and was very keen, no doubt, on testing, like debate, the master. And all the master said was, love God. So the professor didn't know what to think. So he asked him another, curveball question that would really get Yogananda's intellect stirred. The response, love God. Until finally Yogananda nearly shouted, and perhaps he did, love God. And the guy thought, and this was a thought that he harbored for many decades afterwards, that even gurus have their quirks. And at that point, Yogananda got up from the interview and walked out, because that was all that was needed. And so after this, this little week of this semi-seclusion, I really haven't had a seclusion with this variation of having a rug laid in the middle of the seclusion. There's other things that come, but this was a new one, and it's a wonderful blessing for us. But I thought, this is what we need to do on a daily basis, minute to minute. Find ways that we're not postponing the journey. I will, work more on my meditation when I'm on vacation. And I'm going down to Kerala, and there'll be all the time that I can, that I would want in order to go deep. As a closing thought, Swami Kriyananda, for people that speak publicly, and perhaps some of you do, he gave wonderful counsel that I have found really, in many ways, life-changing. He said, when you're speaking, draw from the audience and then give back. And then ask the Guru to flow through you. And I've practiced this, for a long, long time now. And I thought, well, I wonder if one can even expand on that. You go into your day, and you draw from the day the many experiences that would be coming to us. Custom from Divine Mother. She makes no mistakes. She's perfect. Drawing from the day and then giving the day back. What a wonderful thought, rather than going into the day like a cat going to the vet, because we're anticipating, the day, and it's like Monday. Sometimes I think that it's fun to meditate on Saturday. Saturday? A little bit of fun, but also do the laundry, and Sunday, hopefully a day, more for God and so forth, and then Monday. It's like Monday. I often think of when I was in school, what I thought of Monday. I felt like I was being crucified, and I never got over it, ever. And I know it was a bad attitude and all of that. Our daughter, it's so ironic. She loves school. She just loves school. And she has a master's degree and all these things, but she still, loves school. And is eager to take courses and so forth. And I thought to myself, my God, I couldn't wait to get done. And when I finished high school, I jumped up in the air, literally, at graduation. I jumped up in the air and I just, whoopee! And I ran and gave my diploma to my parents. And I said, here, it's for you. You've earned it. And they did, because they did my homework assignments and science fair projects, and my mom did an art project, and she got, A's, and she got decorations, and all those things. And I meant it. You've earned it. You've earned it. We all come with different karma. Maybe in past lifetimes I was a professor and did lots of that, and that was great. And I'm not putting down learning for a moment, hardly. But for us, in this intricate experience that we're having of life, we've got to continually go with our strengths. We've got to continually simplify. We've got to continually stay in our center. We've got to continually keep our heart open. We've got to have to continually keep our mind bright. No excuses. That's the main thing. Taking responsibility, no excuses. Because the tendency is to think, this is the reason. The reason I'm unhappy today is because we have no electricity, and we don't like that. We want our electricity, and so forth. We want this convenience. We want whatever we want. But is that going to give us God? So, as a parting thought, think of you're drawing the experiences from the day, custom for you, in order that you love God more and feel more of His joy. And then gratefully, you give the day back in a spirit of seva. Anything you can do to uplift people, anything you can do. And then primarily ask God to use you as an instrument. Because we forget, we are His instruments. Truly we are. And the sooner we can remember that, the better. Remember, as I think I shared with you, that wonderful t-shirt that I found someone wearing in California. I'm looking for myself. Have you seen me anywhere? And there it is from within. That's what we're seeking. And thank God we're yogis. And we have that realization, that knowledge. And we're practicing day after day after day to find that soul within, to awaken from the stream.